Hi everyone, so this video is going to be one tip that will improve your art, and really it's more like 4 or 5 tips because it's all about how to plan an illustration and how to basically get better results. And I've talked about this before, just kind of offhandedly in different videos, but I wanted to make a formal video kind of addressing my process for how I come up with ideas and how I take it to a final, and how you kind of basically ensure that the final will look the way you want it to look through planning. And planning is the most important thing, and I'm going to show you lots of examples of how I plan and how you can generate a lot of thumbnails and pick the best one and figure out the values and the colors and all that kind of stuff. So basically the 4 or 5, I guess, main steps is coming up with ideas, doing lots of thumbnails, choosing the values, so your lights and darks and your lighting, choosing your colors, and then doing some more refined sketches or roughs. And when you put all these together, you know exactly what the final is going to look like. So I want to start off with ideas and thumbnails. Let me just get to, okay, so here's one page of me coming up with ideas. It's ugly. It's not very pretty, but this is what my mind maps kind of look like. And just like random ideas, and I just like circle these little things and star stuff that I kind of want to do. And these aren't even like thumbnails yet, they're just ideas. So this is still kind of like mind mapping. And this is where a thumbnail is. That's a really big thumbnail. I wouldn't normally make them that big. But these are just like examples of how I think about stuff and think up what to do. These are more like thumbnails. They don't have to be pretty. It's just mainly for composition and idea. So you want to know like how things are going to be arranged, and you don't need any of the details in the thumbnail. That's what the rough is for, or you could do bigger thumbnails. And I believe this is all for the same project, so you can really go as far as you want. And you can see some of my thumbnails start off small and they get bigger as I want more. I want to include more of the details. And then here's some more resolved thumbnails. I would call these roughs, not thumbnails at this point. Some more rough thumbnails. These are more detailed ones, and just planning out the colors. Oh, I forgot about an extra step which kind of goes with color, and that's experimenting with your media and choosing like how you want to use your media for that piece. So if you're like this, I use Posca pens and pencil. I did more of a softer watercolor approach, but I'm pretty sure that's it for that project. And this is just more another project coming up with ideas, thumbnails. I believe those are just sketches. And here is actually some thumbnails from a video that I did. So I'm going to use this book and kind of just like take you through my idea process, thumbnail process, values, and all that stuff. Just kind of show you how I do it. So first of all is coming up with ideas, and this can include researching, finding references, brainstorming a bunch of different ideas that you want to try, and basically just getting all your thoughts out on paper in words and pictures, and finding all the resources that you need to be able to execute it. And this doesn't have to be a very involved, lengthy process. It just depends on how much time you want to put into it. You can spend like 2 minutes just like finding quick references and jotting down your ideas. It doesn't have to take forever, but the more planned out and better you want it to be, I guess, the more important the project is. You probably want to put more time into the research phase and coming up with ideas and really exploring what you want to do, because having a clear idea of what you want to accomplish makes it easier to accomplish it. Because it's hard to just open your sketchbook, find a blank page, and just draw something. It's a lot easier to think about it and decide what you want to do. So I will usually brainstorm a bunch of ideas, do a bunch of little quick doodles, and then I'll open up Pinterest and pin a bunch of stuff to a board to collect my references. And never just take one photo. You want to take a whole bunch of different photos so they kind of all collage together and you're not really using it all from the same place, because you can't like completely copy a photograph because that's someone else's work. You just want to like use bits and pieces of like trees to learn how to draw that type of tree, and different poses so you can look at the different parts of the body and create whatever pose you want to create. And it kind of all comes together, and you pull little bits and pieces from different places, and it all creates what you want to draw. The next stage is thumbnails, and this can take so long or really, really short. You can put as much time as you want into thumbnails, and really the possibilities are endless, and it's fun to just explore tons of different compositions and ways you want to draw. During the thumbnail portion, you may also want to consider character design and world building and style and how you want all those elements to sort of look. You can even do that before the thumbnails, and then in your thumbnail, it's mostly about what characters will be where are all the elements, like how are the elements going to be organized rather than what the elements look like. But it's really up to you how detailed you want your thumbnails to be. It just depends on how many you want to do. And I find it easier to start off with a really, really loose general thumbnails and then kind of narrow it down to the ideas you actually want to explore, and then start to make those a little bit more detailed as you develop them. And then you want to go back and choose the ones you like, maybe try to improve them, and eventually you find the thumbnail that you want your final illustration to kind of look like. And in terms of what I use for thumbnails, I will either do it digitally or I'll do it on paper. I find paper is a little bit quicker for me because it's just more immediate. It's right there in front of you. I like using mechanical pencils so I can erase things if I need to, but also it's nice to not be able to erase things so that you can just move on and not get too involved with the details, because it's all about general shapes at this point. It's not about the details. Ballpoint pens are some of my favorite tools to sketch with because you can go light and dark. It won't smudge and it kind of stays put. It's a very sort of permanent medium, but it also looks nice. And sometimes I'll do a page of thumbnails, sometimes I'll do 10 or 20 pages of thumbnails. It really depends on how much planning you need and how much planning you want to do for that project. Everyone's different and it's going to take different amounts of time depending on what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish that day. So after thumbnails comes value studies or tonal studies or whatever you want to call it. It's basically deciding where your lights and darks will be. And this is important because you want your final illustration to have enough contrast so that it looks appealing. Because if something doesn't have contrast, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. It can look washed out. It can look too dark, too light. There's no clear light source. There's no area you're supposed to look, that it can have no mood. Stylistically, sometimes really low contrast things can look nice, but it has to be intentional and not something that looks bad, if that makes sense. So you can do as many different tests for values as you want. So you can do one that has a light sky, one that has a dark sky. Incorporate atmospheric perspective, which is basically if you have a light sky, the elements that are farther away get lighter, and if your sky is darker, the elements that are farther away get darker, so things kind of blend into space. You want to choose your light source, create a mood, just explore where your whites, blacks, and grays will go, and the different kinds of pictures you can create. Because values can really change a thumbnail, and actually when I'm making thumbnails, sometimes I shade them in because that's just how my brain works. I just want to know where the lights and darks will be. So this can kind of come into play with your thumbnail stage, but sometimes I like to sort of do it more formally off to the side as a whole separate step, but it depends on how thorough I want to be and how much planning I want to put into something. Because the more you plan something, the greater a chance there is of it turning out in the end. And I've experienced this firsthand. I know this to be a fact. Sometimes, there's always room for mistakes, but the more you have planned, the better chance you have of actually accomplishing what you want to accomplish. And it's a really nice feeling to be able to do that. And the way you can is to put planning into it. So to plan your lights and darks, it might be a good idea to look at maybe some reference photos of examples of what different lighting can look like, or do it intuitively. It's really up to you how you want to accomplish it. And I honestly find it the easiest to do this digitally. I would recommend doing it digitally, but you don't have to. You can use ink washes or just shade it in with pencil. It really doesn't matter how you do it, but I just like to do all these planning stages as quickly and easily as possible just to get to the final and to work on the final piece. So after values comes probably one of the hardest parts, and that's color, because there's just so many different colors, there's so many possibilities, and sometimes it can be really hard to decide on a color scheme or to even find something that actually looks good. So look up references, find color palettes around you, try different color combinations, and if all else fails, just try to go back to the basics of complementary colors, triadic colors, analogous colors. And this can really be a trial and error stage, but it can help so much in the end, so you're not guessing where all your colors are going to go. And while you're doing your colors, you're also going to have to keep in mind where your lights and darks are going to be, but you already have those planned out from the previous stage. And you can even colorize your tonal studies by using gradient maps or putting layers on top of it with different blending modes and colorizing what's below. The way I do color is I'll kind of find a few main colors that I want to use, and I'll sort of softly lay them down, and then I like to eyedrop colors that were made from those colors and bring them into other areas, and I slowly build it up like that. So I like to kind of have everything sort of blend together and work together and pull colors from all over the canvas and bring them into other areas, and that's kind of like how I work. I also like to change the color balance a little bit and use some overlay layers to kind of brighten things up or saturate areas more, or kind of like bring it all together. It's sort of a trial and error process for me, but once I find the right palette, I kind of work on it a little bit more to make it better and come up with a few different versions of the same palette, just with like different variations, and then I will pick my favorite one from there. And then once I actually execute it, especially if it's traditional, it always ends up changing, but I think it always changes for the better because the supplies I'm using kind of force it to unify a little bit more because I'm using the same colors to sort of mix everything, and it all kind of comes together. So we did research, thumbnails, values, colors, and now comes the stage where you just want to refine your sketch. Depending on how detailed your thumbnail is, you might actually want to refine your thumbnail before you do the values and the colors. Just depends on how you want to work, but before you do the final, you will have to have sort of a clearer idea of what you want it to look like. I usually do this in the thumbnail stage where I will have a thumbnail that's clean enough that I can use for the final, and I'll kind of work out the details as I go, which probably isn't the best idea because I want to know exactly what my drawing will look like before, but sometimes I don't do that. But if you haven't defined your sketch more and worked out exactly where the details will be, then you want to do that now before you do the final. And then you basically use that as your skeleton. These are just your lines of where everything is placed and the details and all that stuff. That's your skeleton for what you will then trace to your good paper or digitally, or however you're going to do it. And then you keep in mind your values, you reference your colors while you're painting, and then you kind of take everything you just did and it all kind of comes together. So I really hope this video helped you if you don't do these things. I know a lot of you probably already know this. Well, maybe not a lot of you, but some of you probably already do this, but some people might not. And I just wanted to make a formal video talking about my process so that if anybody asks, I can kind of direct them here. Because these are some things I didn't know for very long, especially when I first started my channel and all that. There was a few years of me not really planning things out, but once I learned that how to do it and how much it can help, it really helped me a lot, and I know it can help you too if you haven't done it before. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what your process is and the kind of things you like to do to get ready for a drawing. And I also have a Patreon where I send out a print every month and stickers and a mystery item, and I also have sketchbook PDFs and all kinds of stuff on my Patreon, and I have a store where I sell stickers and pins and prints and all that kind of stuff. So you can check out all that in the description. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you enjoyed this. And also turn on the notification bell because sometimes my videos just don't make it to subscription boxes. It just depends on the video, but if you want to turn on the notification, feel free to do that. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you found this informative or enjoyable, and I will see you in my next video.